Okay, another exciting episode again of the Legacy Lounge podcast. Today I have the amazing Cyndi Hall. Cyndi is a wife, a mother, you said a nana, and her first career was as a registered nurse in critical care and emergency medicine. Then she switched careers in her mid-50s after going through a financial crisis and learning about finances for her family. That's when she found a passion for financial literacy. Oh man, that's so important. Oh, let me just start there, Cyndi. Let's just start there. Well, first, is there anything that you want the viewers, the audience to know about you, Cyndi?
About me?
Mhm.
No, I think you said it all. I was a nurse for a really long time, and that was my first career. I didn't really think I'd ever switch careers until, like you said, I discovered financial literacy. I guess it's not something I would want them to know about me, but I would want them to know that finances aren't as scary or big, bad, and ugly as we might think. And if more Americans would bring it to the forefront and talk about it instead of what we're all taught about not to talk about it, then more people would be financially literate and more people would be financially successful.
So what? Because usually people don't talk about it until they reach a crisis or until it's too late. So what can we do to kind of ease people into that conversation and let them know it's not as scary as you think it is in your mind?
Well, just start talking about it and don't be afraid of it. Like, I believe people think there's judgment behind maybe the things that they've done. And really, if you're with a financial professional that has judgment, you're with the wrong financial professional.
Ooh.
So where we're at, we're sitting across the table from you or across the Zoom from you. And we want you to know that there's ease, there's no judgment, there's just knowledge and education. And we meet you where you are. I also have my securities licenses, which makes me a financial advisor. However, I found that a lot of financial advisors with these licenses, they speak well above your head so that you don't understand the information that's being presented. And I feel like at Universal Wealth, we speak at the level that you're at and then add more so you can learn.
Mm. And I know one of the things that you've done that was just absolutely amazing is you branded yourself as the retirement nurse. And I know you have a passion for helping medical professionals with their retirement. What is it, especially, I know we've talked about this a little bit off camera, but what is it that medical professionals should know about retirement?
Well, I believe when I started my first job, this is going to reveal my age a little bit. We didn't have a 401k, or we did have a pension, but you had to stay there for 10 years. And unfortunately, I didn't stay there, which is a lot like most medical professionals, especially nowadays. They change jobs, they change companies. So you're going to have a different retirement plan. You may have two or three out there, but the biggest thing is that to take control of it, don't roll it into the next employer, because you lose a certain amount of control when you do that. It's better for you to maintain control. It's already a government sponsored program. So you've already relinquished some control to the government. So why are you going to leave it with an old employer and give control to them as well? And so what we like to do is help you find them and then put them in a place that's protected. And so you can see it. If you need to have some access to it, you could, because what they don't know is that if you roll it into your new employer, you only have access to a loan, and it's only up to 50,000 or half of what you have in it. So say you had 500,000 in it, you can only have access to 50,000 of that money. Now, obviously, if you use it pre 59 and a half, there's going to be some penalties involved, but you're always better off having access to your money instead of being restricted by the employer or the organization that monitors it.
So, what would you say to the people who, because this is a situation that I've recently run into where people go, you know what, I'm fine, I could do it all on my own. And then I realize that they're paying extra fees doing it by themselves.
100%. So I think even though all the companies are supposed to disclose the fees. They do disclose them, but they're in the little tiny print at the bottom, and most people don't read them, let's be honest. And
Yeah.
so I feel that most people are not aware of the fees they're already paying. So if you leave it at your old employer, you are paying a fee with no advice, no help, nothing. And so be aware of those. If you want to do it on your own, then move it to a place where you're going to get minuscule fees and then manage it on your own if you feel like you're capable, but at least move it to a place that makes sense instead of leaving it at the old place. But here's the thing, we actually help people for free or complimentary, and we'll give you advice or suggestions or education on the different ways that you can house your money, the different places you could house it, so you could choose which is the best place for your plan, like what plan you're making. I find most people don't make a plan. They just get told when they start out as a medical profession, whichever it is, maybe respiratory therapist, PA, RN, whatever it is, you're told here from HR, this is your options, your benefits. Okay, choose them. They don't tell you what to choose. They don't say, Tino, you want to retire at 55 or you want to retire at 65? Well, this is how much you're going to have to contribute in order to be at that place. How much money do you want to have? What does your life look like at that age? Or what do you think you're going to need? Nobody talks about that. They just kind of speculate. Well, if you want to have a lavish life in retirement, you're going to need a lot more money. But if you're like, well, my house will be paid off, my kids will be gone, I don't really think I need much, then maybe yours looks a little different. I find that one shoe doesn't fit all people. I mean, Tina, what size shoe do you wear?
A 13.
Oh, I wouldn't be wearing your shoes. I might be with 2 feet in one shoe, but so in the corporate world, they sit and make one shoe for every person where finance is concerned, and that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I've also been finding out that a lot of people haven't even been reading over that. Like how you said, you go to HR and this is your plan, and people are still have the mindset of the whole I get a match and it's dollar for dollar. And I remember looking over my wife's, it was 6% of 8%. And I'm just like,
Whoa.
whoa.
Yeah. I mean, I've sat on hundreds of appointments and I have people and I say, well, are you getting a match from your company? I know there's a lot of different opinions about that out there, but I mean, I kind of think like, well, if you get a match, it's free money. Maybe that's a good idea. But they don't even know. Like they
Yeah.
don't know. So maybe you're putting in 2%, but they match 4%. But if you don't know, you're missing out on 2%. Right. I mean, so here's the bottom like line with finances is the more you're educated, the more successful you are. And unfortunately, our society doesn't really provide a lot of education. We talk about it all the time, Tino. Close to 70% of people are financially illiterate in our
Yeah.
country. And for as many as financial professionals as we haven't changed that a whole lot in the last 7 years that I've been in the industry.
Yeah. So how can we ease that stress and that burden, especially on our financial professionals? Because I know like usually they're the members of the family who everybody leans on them for everything. They're like, oh, well, you're a medical professional, so you should understand health and you should understand finances because you're in that job. You should be making a whole ton of money and you got it all.
Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes even though you're making a lot of money, you still might not have that financial education. And you're right. People lean on the people that make more money. They just assume that they're more knowledgeable just because they have more money. That hasn't been the case as I sat down with clients. And so I guess I would say like, as we reach out to people, but you can also check people out that have licenses. So when you go to work with somebody, make sure they have a license. And if they're giving you bad information, you also can complain about that. I mean, people should be upfront and honest about what they're doing, how they're getting paid, what are they charging, and what are they going to provide to you. I mean, we talked about a client earlier that I'm sure they were charging them because I know the company that they were with, and they haven't even talked to him in 2 years. And so why are you paying somebody if they're not going to give you information or education on your finances? We believe, and I know Tino believes the same thing, is that education is empowering, so that they can actually look at their information and like, okay, this makes sense to me. Instead of blindly telling you what to do, we educate and empower you to make choices.
Yeah, that sums everything up perfectly, because I know I'm always talking about people like knowing their options, knowing the plan, so that they can live their life with intention instead of just by coincidence or accident. Especially, there are a lot of people, especially high income earners, who are living paycheck to paycheck, and because they don't have that knowledge.
Right. Unfortunately, we were, prior to coming into the industry, I made a lot of money as a nurse. I worked 3 jobs. I had 2 kids still in college. The year prior, we had a son that had a medical, critical incident, and we lived paycheck to paycheck, and it came basically, like, right in my face that money doesn't change what's happening to you, but
Mhm.
money gives you choices. I had no choices. I couldn't hire somebody because I didn't have the money to take care of him, and I couldn't take care of him because I didn't have the time. So, being more financially educated, it's not saying make a lot of money, but maybe knowing what to do with the money you have so that you're not living paycheck to paycheck, because everybody has choices. It's just you might not know the right ones to make.
Mm, yeah, yeah, wow, man. You said you were working 3 jobs.
Oh yeah, 3. That's that's crazy. I'd go to a 12-hour shift in the ER, then I would pick up equipment to run critical care transport calls, and I literally would pray when I laid my head down at night that I wouldn't get called, and usually I did. And then I was out till like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Then I had to do my note, and then I took my equipment back at 8, and then I went to a part-time job because my 12-hour job was 3 days a week, and my part-time job was the days that I didn't go to the full-time job.
When did you have time for anything?
That was the whole thing. I didn't have time, right? I didn't have time. I literally worked all the time and I didn't sleep either.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you had to be making a lot of money during that time.
Oh, I
But you
was.
you gave up your time for it though.
Right, exactly. And that's the unfortunate part is just because you work more and work more hours, you're trading your time for money. Typically what happens is you don't end up more wealthy. You end up spending more because think about it. I couldn't fix dinners for my family. I usually stopped and got something, so I'm spending more money there. I didn't take care of things around the house. I literally was just running thinking that was the best option. And when I got introduced to the financial services industry, I started looking at that. Like one of my goals was I'm going to get rid of one of my part-time jobs. And one of the ways I did that was really looking at our finances because before that, I'll be honest, I didn't look at them. I didn't look at them. I just money was coming in, money was going out. I was just kind of running. And it wasn't until we slowed down and I got invited to an event and I'll be honest, I didn't really wanna go, but it was my friend, and so I
Mhm.
said, "Sure, I'll help my friend out." So that's the thing to notice is that, like, if you care about your friends and they're thinking about doing something in this industry, be open-minded to it. Like, I was pretty close-minded, and then, they provided some value with some education and some products that I liked, and then I went from there. I actually fought them for about 4 months and said, I don't think this is for me. I work way too much. I don't have any time to myself. So I don't know how I would ever do this. But then I became intrigued with what we were teaching people and saw a huge need for what we do. And then I figured it out. And which is what most people will do is they'll figure it out if they're passionate about it. So you can make a lot of money, like I don't know, two, three, $400,000 and still be living paycheck to paycheck. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you're in that place, it might be a good idea to sit down with somebody. They could look at it and help you restructure things so that you don't feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck.
Mm, yeah, because I know one of the things that we always teach is not always about how much money you make, but how much you get to keep.
Right.
And I didn't even, I'm just thinking about like the big things, that the big expenses and taxes and things like that come and eat at your money. And then, market volatility and stuff. But you even was talking about like, oh, because of you working so much, then that means you're spending money on food and just, oh man. And then I see a lot of people, especially in the medical profession, a lot of people are trying to buy their peace of mind, where
Yes.
it's like, oh, well, I got to go on this vacation because I work so hard, but then the
Mhm.
vacation never lasts long enough.
No, or you reward yourself. Like I find that a lot of nurses, I worked with nurses in particular. A lot of nurses will be like, "Oh, I'm going to go buy this. I'm going to work an extra shift so I can buy it." So you're never learning how to live on what you bring in. It's always like, "Oh, I'm stretched on what I bring in, then I'm going to work an extra shift to have those things I want or desire," instead of actually budgeting that into your current money that's coming in. And that's probably the biggest travesty, is that because once you're doing that, like I had two extra jobs. I should have like two extra jobs. That's all extra money. And it's going to go to savings or build my wealth or buy a business or whatever that's going to make me become wealthy. But no, I was just spending it because you're just you're just running at that point. You don't have a plan. What I know about money, if you don't have a plan and it's not set down, then money just tends to go away. It doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a reason they collect the 401k money when you're an employee before you get it, because people wouldn't contribute typically if they have to do it after the fact, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That is absolutely true and necessary. So I know one of the things that my wife and I joke around about, but she's always like, I don't think that I could do what you do, Tino. And I'm like, you could, but if I'm never pressuring her to do it. But she laughs because she goes like, well, telling people what to do as far as their health, like they like take this medicine. If you do, this will happen. If you don't, you're probably going to end up in a worse situation. But because like it doesn't necessarily have to affect her living, she's just like, it's whatever. But she goes, Tino, you're really trying to help people put in a better place financially, which will improve all of the other areas of their life.
Mhm.
And people are still kind of closed off to it. Like how do you get through that? And I'm like, well, Cindy's been in both worlds. How
Mhm.
does she do it?
Well, I actually believe it's a lot like medicine, because she doesn't tell her patients, take this medicine or this medicine. She educates them on what's going on and what's happening in their life or their illness right now. And she tells them, you can do this or you can do this. And some people might not want to do the solution she has. She may present another one, and she'll give them the options to take care of what they have diagnosed. And that's the same thing we do, is that we sit down with them and we look at their finances. So I like liken it. I came from emergency medicine. I did a lot of triage. I liken the financial review to triage. I'm looking for areas that need help. Same thing I did when I laid eyes on a patient, is I'm looking for areas. Are they struggling? Do they need to be seen right away? What is their number one complaint? Is something hiding that I'm not getting? It's the same thing when I do a financial review. And then I don't sell anybody anything. I just look at what they've got going on, see if there's any illnesses in their finances, and I give them solutions. And then they pick what they want to do. And so I personally think that every nurse, doctor, respiratory therapist should bring this alongside, because right now is the greatest time, because more people need our help, because there's money being moved, and you could get your license and you could jump on board, connect people to Tino or myself, and we split the business. It could be super passive. So I think that nurses, medical professions, they lead with education, which is one of the things I love about the company that we're with currently, is that's what we do. We don't lead with, internal consumption, or you're just selling the person this one product. No, we actually educate the client, recognize if there's any areas that need addressing, And then we have solutions that will help you in those. If you don't like them, well, then maybe we educated you a little bit, and that's great. Maybe some people don't need our help. Maybe we just give them a high five and they're like, oh, I'm good. Now we just provided them with confidence, and now they're going to perform better because they're confident at where they're at. Even people that are doing the right things, because they don't get that acknowledgement, they still aren't confident. And the thing with money is, you're either confident with money or you're not confident with money. And like one of our mentors, Andre, talks about money's not real. He doesn't mean it's not real, but it really isn't. It's just another tool. It's just another tool. It can leave you as quick as you get it, or it can stack up and you could put it in a great investment. Or you could be like my parents, who never really put it in anything good. And every investment they had went south. I don't know why. Maybe they didn't invest it long enough, or didn't investigate it well enough. But it's just a tool. And the minute we get away from the good and the bad of money, the more easy money becomes. And I just think, being a medical professional, people ask me that all the time. Well, what does nursing have to do with finances? And I was like, well, it really made us prepared to do this, because when we educate people every day, we look for things that are going wrong, and we look for solutions. That's all you need to do to come on board here.
And so you're saying for the medical professionals that they don't even have to be an expert in it. You were saying like they just pass the business along and get paid.
Yeah, they could if they wanted to. I found, for me, that's what I was going to do originally, is like, I just can connect all these people that I know. They all need the help, because they all talk about money. Trust me. We don't sit around that much, but whenever we have downtime, everybody's talking about money. They're not talking about it in a good way, but they're talking about it. And like, either they owe this, or they need this, or they want to buy a house, or, whatever the things around money are. And so if you need an additional stream of income, this can become super passive. I thought I was going to come in, get my license, connect the people to the people around me, and then we split business. I'd never have to sit on an appointment. But what I found for me, doesn't have to be for the people that are watching, but what I found for me is I became very passionate about helping other people understand and own their finances. And so I wanted to have a greater part. And then COVID hit, and I decided I didn't really want to be in nursing anymore. Before that, I still loved nursing. But once COVID hit, I was like, man, I already got this business. I must step out now. So
yeah, because I see a lot of people want to get out of healthcare.
Yeah, it's a rough. What people don't know is it's a very rough field. Yes, you're doing good, but if you think about it, most of the people that are in, say, a hospital setting, or even like clinic setting, you're always giving to the people around you. And typically nobody turns around and gives to you. So if you're a female and you're a mom or a wife, typically you spend the whole day giving to somebody else. And then usually you come home and give to the people around you too. So it's just a rough profession to stay in long term. But what we're finding with nurses, because they don't understand their finances very well, is they're staying in the profession past age 70, even though they don't want to, because they just can't afford to retire.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know just from being around in certain circles, it's a lot of talk about burnout. Yeah. And, like I really had to sit and, like how you said, you were talking about just giving all the time. And I'm just like, man, what can we do to help people not experience such burnout? Because it just breaks my heart.
Yeah, it is. So one of the things I thought, because coming in on the financial side, is that if we can get them to understand their finances and be empowered, then they're not there. Yes, they're always going to like work for money, but they're not there because they have to. I worked all the jobs because I had to. I worked at a particular facility because my kids were young. I wanted to be close. If something happened, I wanted to be, around. And so I worked at a place. I usually worked some overtime with them too, because, I needed that job. So I needed for them to see me favorably. And so when you empower people about money, so they own their finances and they don't feel like, well, if I don't have a paycheck this month, I won't be able to pay my mortgage. I won't be able to pay, my food, whatever they have as their bills. if you're empowered that you could go 2-3 months without needing a paycheck, then it's a much different conversation than if you are living from paycheck to paycheck. Because when you need that check, you toe the line, you do what you're told, you don't make any waves. And so, especially for nursing or anybody in the medical profession, once you become empowered with your finances and you have a sound financial foundation, the doors are open. If you don't like what's happening at the facility that you're at, you'd be like, I'm going to look for another job. You know, I mean, and the more we empower the people in these positions, the more the facilities will change, the more they'll look at what needs to be the well-being for these people, because right now they're not looking at it because the people need their jobs, so why should they be looking at it?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Because I know one of the things that I've thought of is like, okay, did this person get this job or get into this position or this profession because they absolutely love it, or it's because they needed the money? And so
Well, I
that,
think that's twofold. Yes, I do
yeah.
think that's twofold. A lot of nurses, I would say, get into nursing because they value the profession. Like they want to care for people, they want to help people. That's probably a large portion of nurses. But there are ones coming in that are coming for the money. It can be decent salary depending on what state you are. But if you come in young in your early 20s, say you come in as a young nurse and you make a lot of money, you typically raise your lifestyle to what you're making. If
Mhm.
you raise your lifestyle to what you're making, then you always need that job. If somebody comes in and educates you and says, whoa, whoa, wait a minute here, let's look at what you're making, make a solid plan so that you never have to depend on anybody again. Now you're doing the job because you love the job, not because you need the money. And maybe that's living in a little bit of a fantasy world, because most of Americans work for money and trade their time for money because they need the money. But I feel like we can educate people more so that they can be empowered, so they don't feel like they need the job. Now the job becomes a little bit different because you're going and you're giving, and you have more of a voice once you're empowered.
Yeah. And then so you're not necessarily trying to pour from an empty cup, which then just improves your overall quality of life
Right.
in every area.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Think about the satisfaction of the workers if they come in because they want to come in to their shift versus the worker that just fought with their kids. They're going to work night shift. They had to get everybody ready, have somebody watching them, feed them dinner. Now they go to their shift. Something at home has been amiss, and they come in because you can't really call in sick because you might not have enough sick time, or you might want to save it for something else, depending how it's structured. But now you've got a grumpy nurse dealing with things from home coming to take care of your family member. I don't need to tell you how that turns out.
Yeah. Especially if they're seeing like, I don't know, 20, 30 patients.
Yeah. Mhm.
Woo.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, let's be honest, healthcare is a moneymaker,
Mhm.
but nurses are on the lower totem pole of that money. I mean, it's it is what it is. And so if we empower them with their finances, I think people don't want to sit with people because they think that you're trying to get something from them. But
Yeah.
you asked me earlier what I would like them to know. So I would like medical professionals to know that there are a group of us out there that just want to empower you with your finances, teach you some ways that are tax strategies. How do you save more? How do you spend less? How do you create an emergency fund? What does that look like? How does that feel when you have it? How do you get a hand on your credit cards if you have credit card debt? These people, not everybody, but you should vet them out or interview them as well. And they want you to be empowered so you're not living with your finances being in disarray. So you should sit with them and have an open mind.
Yeah. I know you were talking about like just the stress of like having to face your financial situation in the past. How is it different from then to now?
Oh, well, it's crazy because most people would think like I'm an entrepreneur, I don't work as a nurse anymore. And most people would think, well, that's so like risky, or I get people say I need something stable.
Mhm.
Well, I had a job a few years ago and it was in-home infusions, and I told them I wanted to work part-time. And so I was supposed to work 24 hours a week, and I was supposed to give them 24 hours, but yet they didn't give me 24 hours of work. So they wanted me to give them my time, but yet they didn't want to pay me. So I don't really think that's stable. So the difference is, I think it's a big mindset shift. And I one of the biggest things I did to leave nursing was to have a hard look at what are we spending money on? Like, what do we spend money on every day? And what do I need to come in? Like, what amount of money do I need coming in? And quite frankly, since I decided that decision, like I'm just going to be an entrepreneur, no longer do any nursing, I have brought in the amount we need every month and then some. And so now I have a pretty big nest egg that if I didn't bring any money in this month or next month, or I don't believe that will happen, but if I didn't, I definitely had money that I can utilize. And it's not money in an old 401k either. It's not that money. It's money that I've actually set aside so that I could live 3 to 6 months without having to worry about needing a job. And to me, that gives you ultimate freedom. If my son's incident happened today, I could take time off if I wanted to. But the other thing that it gives is the flexibility of this business is that I literally could connect everybody to other business partners and split business 50-50 and take care of my son.
Hmm.
So there's just freedom. I have so much more freedom now than I ever had. Back then, I was strapped to a job. I mean, I made a lot of decisions in my life because I didn't feel like I could take time off of work. My son had a craniotomy, and I only took 2 weeks off of work. That's all they'd give me. One, I wasn't going to get my daughter's wedding off because I didn't have enough vacation time. I severed a muscle in my leg. I never took off time to have surgery because it was going to be 8 weeks recovery. And so now it's just not healed the way it's supposed to. But I had that mindset because I didn't feel like I could take the time off work. I couldn't take that hit without the money.
Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of people. Well, what I'm seeing in my area is really just pregnancy. Like,
Oh,
man, I'm seeing these women get pregnant, having babies, and then having to go back to work. And they literally, I'm not ready to go back to work. And I'm just like, what do you do?
you're going to think this is crazy. I went back to work when my oldest was 5 weeks old because they would not pay my 5 weeks off if I didn't go back. And I worked up until the day before I delivered. So I literally had 5 weeks off. Yeah. But it's all mindset. It's a mindset. Like I needed the money. I needed what they were giving me to offer. So the minute you learn about money and you don't have that mindset, it's freedom. Like think about it. Think about the people you're talking about. What if they could take a whole year off? They had a business that was creating money. Maybe they want to go back to the medical field, but what if they didn't have to?
Yeah, man, that is amazing. We definitely got to get your message out there because I know that just hearing that, it's like, oh, that sounds almost impossible. And I'm like, but she did it.
Yeah. Too good to be true, right? I've
Yeah.
lived both sides. I lived the side that I went back to work, like those moms that said, I'm not ready to go back. I wasn't ready, but we needed the money. And so I had to. And now I'm on the side where, I get to choose the life that I want and the time I can take off and when I can go somewhere. And I get to choose how many hours I want to work a day and how many clients I can see. And I don't have to live in that fear or that just trading your time for money because time is limited. You don't even know how much you get.
So what would you say to the people who are just like, oh, but that can't be me? Cyndi, you must have something special. It must be the red glasses or something like not me.
Oh, well, if you saw me, I'm all of 5'1", and I'm not very big either. And so if I can do it, anybody can do it. But what I would say to people like that is maybe it's not financial services. But if it interests you, you can do it very flexible time. You can keep your job till you get up and running. For 3.5 years, I did this part time or flexible time. I leveraged other people and I learned the trade in, the hours when I wasn't running all over the California, Conejo Valley, right? LA area, taking people all over the place. But you can learn it and it can be very passive. It's also important to create something that creates a passive stream of income. Most people just think they're going to work their job until a retirement age, but that age may never come because retirement's not an age, it's an amount of money. So what if you never get that amount of money? Are you just going to work the rest of your life? I mean, so I would encourage people to look at something that will free up your mind to think outside the box and create money from somewhere else other than a job.
Yeah. Well, I know with opportunities and stuff like that, most people think that it has to be a scam because they don't know about it, or it's too risky, or they're not smart enough, or just how do you get past all of those limiting beliefs? Because I know one of the things that you said was like the first time you heard it, you were kind of like,
Yeah, I was like, this is a scam. I know it is, right? But then, I mean, I spent some time with them. I vetted things out, like your licenses through the state, just like my nursing license. You have to take a test. I mean, the state doesn't give people licenses, that aren't accredited. And so, just like my nursing license, I had to go buy my nursing license. So I bought my life license and I took the exam for that. I took my exam for my securities licenses. I don't have any formal schooling like an MBA. I did do my master's in nursing administration, so it was a little bit of business, not much. But I feel like as I've met with clients and the resources that I have, the mentors that I have, it's something that I can learn from. And if you surround yourself with people that are honest and have integrity, then that's what you vet out. Like, I'm not saying go into this blindly and be like, oh, yeah, we're going to trust everybody. But there's ways to look at what you're looking at. And if it makes sense, then yeah. But inherently, anybody that tells you um, like we're talking and it's like, oh, that sounds too good to be true, that's human nature. Like, we think, like, I know I thought my whole life I have to work really hard. Why do you think I worked like 16 hours a day? Like, the more I
yeah,
work, the more I'll make, the more I'm worth. But that's not the case. Like, it gets to be easier if you open your mind. It gets to be more fluid if you allow it to be. Most people weren't taught. I'm hoping that we're teaching these next generations to be different. But my generation, and probably even people in their 50s, still believed that grinding and working super hard is the key to success. But I don't really think that people that are super wealthy, I'm not saying you don't have to work, but what I'm saying is they figure out the ways to make it happen without giving all their time to somebody else. So I guess
mm,
I would look at it, because really, if you turn it around, why don't we think a job is a scam? Like, you're going to pay me minimal. I mean, I have a master's degree in nursing, and I got the paid the same as somebody who had an associate degree, doing the same thing, but I was in charge, but we got paid the same amount of money. Well, isn't that a scam? Like, why is it? Why am I not worth more? But it's how it's run. If you're working for somebody else, that's hierarchical. You have a CEO, you have the other O's, you've got directors, you've got managers, you've got charge people, and then you got the people that are doing all the work. I mean, to me, that seems like a scam, but it's how our society works. So if you can train your brain to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do something where I can create that stream of income that doesn't necessarily have to be tied to time, you'll create more freedom for yourself. And, I mean, yeah, there is a lot of scams out there, but just check it out. We're all smart. I'm pretty sure when you go to your job that you check out who the company is before you actually go to the job. I mean, right? I guess some
Yeah.
people have scammed on that too, though. But I heard some people did stuff online and then there was no company, but it's just doing your due diligence. And fortunately for us, our industry is highly regulated. You can actually Google my name with my license numbers that has to be on my email. If I send you any emails, you have my license on there and you can Google me to see if I have any complaints or somebody that said something about me. You can look up the people and see what they do. If you're working with any financial advisor that has securities licenses, you can actually go look up them on broker check and you can look up their name, see how many people complained about them, if they have any outstanding things that are not resolved. So it's a very, I think people go into it maybe kind of gullible. And then that's when they're like, oh, this is a scam, instead of coming in with your eyes wide open. And that's when at first I was like, oh, two things. One, I didn't have enough time. I was like, you're crazy. I'm working my brains out right now. How can I do one more thing? Another thing was like, this just sounds like, what people think about life insurance and they think, oh, that's a scam because people used to knock on our doors or something, right? I don't
Mhm.
really know, but somehow it got a bad rap. But the reality is if you have somebody evaluating your situation and what your needs are and can prove that when they show you, then it's not a scam. It's a great tool. And there's a lot of tools out there financially. I mean, so I guess my advice would be do your due diligence. And I don't think the person that somebody knows, I think that's a great referral because if I worked with Tino and Tino trusts me, then that's a great partnership. Because if Tino didn't trust me, then I wouldn't work with me. And I think that's where we also miss the boat is that we give referrals all the time. I love my hairdresser. She's fabulous. Anybody asks me where I get my hair done, I tell her. I say she's hard to book with, but if you do it in advance, you should get her. She's the best thing out there. And so we refer that and we're super comfortable with it. But where money is concerned, we're not that same way. It's kind of interesting. But that's what I tell people. Do your due diligence and check them out. Like if you see this and you want to work with Tino, then go check him out. He's a great guy. He's got, great accolades and he's got the licenses and he does really great work. And, the same thing for me, but don't go into things blindly, but I would say use that for everything in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I am so interested in like this is more of a personal question. Were you always just like this even keeled throughout? Because if you're working and you're like having no time and you got this happening and that happening, I'm like, how did you manage that internally? Like that
Not
feels like
very,
just a time bomb ready to go
yeah.
off.
Not very well. I mean, for the most part, I did, but I have had a few outbursts. I'll just call them that in my life. I mean, I do
Yeah.
remember one time I tend to absorb other people's energy. I'm very empathetic. And
Hmm.
so that I've learned to control over time. And I think as you age, you get a little more even keeled. But I do remember one time in the ER, we were switching from paper to computer. And I don't know if you know anything about that world, but paper was a lot less cumbersome. But now I look back and I think, how did we ever do that? But it was just kind of like short little notes. You did little short phrases and blah blah blah, and you didn't necessarily have to do it in the moment. Like you could get all your work done, and then you could go sit down and chart. And so you could get it done. You took little notes at the bedside. But I was in the ER and I was in charge, and everybody was stressing out, and especially the doctors, because they didn't really want to do it. And we went all day. I didn't take a lunch break. Everybody was chipping at me, but everything on the outside ran pretty smooth. And I went at the end, I was like turning it off to the next charge nurse of the next shift. And I'm like, man, I don't feel very good. And then I went, we had a little like break room area right off to the side. And I ended up throwing up in the trash can there. I was just like, I must have just held it all in. And so if you do not like, you got to kind of, um, let it out a little bit or that will
No.
happen. So I've learned more to not just absorb everybody else's energy. I kind of like step away now a little bit instead of feeling it's my job to make everything right for everybody.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I feel like in my life I have been pretty even keeled. And I was a single mom for a while, so I took on a lot of the stress and, a lot of helping my kids out. I have 3 great kids that I birthed, and then I have 2 stepchildren from my current husband, and we have 4 grandkids. And I feel like, they're one of my greatest accomplishments. So I think being a mom, you do feel like you have to like be all to everybody. And luckily, I was fortunate to be able to keep it all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
By the grace of God, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know like it could be a physical, mental, emotional breakdown. Like, some people are just seconds away from just
That's true. Yeah. You just don't know. I mean, unfortunately, for nurses, since COVID, they are the highest suicide rate of any profession. And most people don't even know that, but they are. And so, one of my passions with building this organization and making more money, it's not about me. It's about actually, I'd love to partner with a few charities that are out there right now that are not very well known, but nurses typically don't have somebody to talk to. We help first responders, we help police officers, firefighters, but nurses are also somewhat on the front line, and we don't get them the help that they need. And it's showing up now in our profession. And I'd love to like have enough money that I give back to those organizations so they could go in every facility across the country, and it's not tied to the organization. It's actually an entity outside the organization that they could access for free.
yeah. That's powerful because it's like you're giving so much of yourself holding and caring for others, but it's like who's holding and caring for you?
Right. And unfortunately, nursing, I don't know, maybe it's doing better right now because I haven't been in for a few years. But when I was practicing, um, nobody's looking out for the nurses. And it's unfortunate because we see so many things, and we deal with so much. And a lot of nurses dealt with a lot during COVID. And if we don't get a handle on it somehow, then the profession may change, which is unfortunate because I think there's a lot of good being done by a lot of medical professionals.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Man, oh man. That's deep, Cyndi. Like that's
Well,
really
we can
deep.
have a whole other podcast on that, right?
Yeah, because it goes past just the financial part. But again, what you're really saying is really just empowering every aspect of your life. It's not just the money. Even though
100%.
you always talk about who's got my money, but it's more than that.
It's right. It's so true because I mean, and I'm not. If anybody knew me, like we live in a modest home. We don't drive fancy cars. We have a truck that's like 14 years old. I mean, it's not really that. It's not showy. It's not, but it's really what the money can do for people or other people, or the peace of mind that it gives you. And unfortunately, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have that peace of mind. You don't go get help that you need. You don't go take the spa day. You don't go get a massage. You don't do those things because you're living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm not saying that you have to do those particular things, but you typically don't take the time for yourself when when money is a concern. And unfortunately, a lot of the nursing profession, money is a concern, or even the medical profession. And so when you get your money right, it just opens up a lot more doors for your whole being to be um I mean, we talk about wealthy as money, but it's allows your whole being to be wealthy. And I don't mean just monetarily. Wealthy in your spirit, wealthy in your physical, wealthy in your money, wealthy in your family. I mean, all the things become easier if money is not a concern.
Yeah, because I know one of the things that you have mentioned is that now you have the time to do a podcast, and I know podcasts can take up a lot of time. But you said you have one with your daughter called "Nice Girls Wear Scrubs." How did that? I like the name. How did that come about? What is it about?
So my daughter's also a nurse, and she practices in North Carolina. And we went. So, and the funny part is, if you go listen to it, you'll find out. But We both have the same birthday. And so, yeah, she was born on my birthday. And so we went and took a trip to New York and we got in a taxi. And there was a lot of things that were coming out post COVID. We got in the taxi and it said it's a federal offense to assault a taxi driver. Yet it's not a federal offense to attack a nurse. And so typically what your management will do is like, well, what could have you done differently if indeed you were attacked? And me working in the ER, I've been bitten, I've been hit, I've been kicked, I've been a lot of things, my hair pulled, like a lot of different things because patients come in at different states when they come into the ER. And so we were like, we looked at each other at the same time and we're like, man, we need to get the word out. So the whole premise of it is like, we talk about the good, bad, and the ugly of nursing. What a lot of people don't know is that we are not a united force in nursing. We typically are very divided, even at the bedside. There's a lot of cultures that are toxic. So we talk about topics that are like that people don't want to talk about. We bring awareness to certain subjects. We bring people on that are experts in their field so that they can get that across. Our current one right now is we're interviewing people that are nursing entrepreneurs. What did they bring on alongside their nursing or instead of their nursing? We had Jenna Reed, somebody that's in our company. She was on our podcast. And it's just shedding light to the different things you can do in nursing, because I also feel like that's empowering for nurses to know they don't have to sit at the bedside. That's not what they have to do. If that's what you love, great. But what if you could do something else that created some residual income and then you could go work at the bedside 1 or 2 days a week? Now that becomes a different profession where you're not grinding 3, 4 days a week, 12-hour shifts at a bedside that you're giving all the time. Now you've got some freedom in your schedule and you've got a different mindset. So that's where the podcast came from. It's super fun.
Yeah. Yeah, especially helping people not grind themselves into a fine powder.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Cyndi, I want to play this little game with you. So I got this deck of cards and it just has a bunch of random questions on it. And so what I'm going to do is just finger my thumb across the cards, such, and you just tell me when to stop.
Okay.
Whatever card I stop on, that's the question I ask, and we'll just roll from there, okay? So let me just put this up here, and let's go.
Stop.
All right. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting question. Why do human beings crave intimacy?
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think because it gives you a sense of belonging, a sense of connection. And I feel like we were made to be connected. We're not typically beings that don't want other human connection. And I think the intimacy provides a deeper layer of that. It's not just surface. So I feel like that if you don't have that, I think sometimes you feel a little lost, maybe.
Yeah. I and I didn't even know this question was coming up, but I think we all want to be a part of something bigger. And, especially when it comes to finances or when it comes to this business, you don't want to be out there on an island and feel like when you're lost or you got a problem or a situation going on, you just don't know who to turn to. I mean, and man, wow, that's crazy because you've experienced it on both sides, like being in nursing and being in finance. Those are very two intimate professions, like, because people have to really open up to you, and it's not as bad as people make it like, oh, I gotta bare my soul or anything, but no, it's like you gotta have a real conversation.
And I think that people feel like they have to be vulnerable, which maybe in the beginning they don't, but the more vulnerable are with your finances, the better situation you'll get in. Like if you hide it, like I'll be honest. When I had my first appointment for my financial review, I lied about everything. Well, I didn't lie about everything. I lied about probably 70% of it.
Why?
Because I had debt and I literally as a nurse was pulling in over $200,000, just me, and I had debt that I couldn't manage.
Mm.
And so I was embarrassed. I was really embarrassed. I'm like, how can I be living this way and not be, and so I didn't want somebody else to know that. Like we're very like we want, our society teaches us that being financially stable or making money like makes like makes it meaning like you're somebody. Like if I walked in there, yeah, I make this amount of money, but I don't have any money and I owe like $40,000 of debt, that doesn't seem like that's a good person, right? Like if
Yeah.
what our society says. Now that's not true. It absolutely isn't true. If I told them, they weren't going to be like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? You know, that's not what we do. We help you. More people than you realize were in the same situation I was. So the more vulnerable you can be about where you're at and talk about it, the more you have the chances of getting out of this situation and not repeating it.
Yeah. Because I know, and I tell people, don't attach your self-worth to your net worth. Like
Oh,
you
yep.
got to have a separation. And, I'm not where I want to be, but I know I'm on the journey because people will go, well, you're in finance. Well, where's your Ferrari and your helicopter and your millions and billions of dollars? And it's just like, no, I'm on the journey.
Yeah.
Just come follow me on the journey, and you'll meet some people and you'll learn a thing or two, and then you can invite somebody else to come on the journey, and we'll all get to where we want to go in life.
And unfortunately, like that question, where's your helicopter? Where's your jet? All those things. That's what society wants you to believe, that somebody in finance is yeah, you can make that money, but is everybody going to spend it on that stuff? I mean, I'm not. Like, so you could look at me and be like, well, where's your money? Well, you might not know by looking at the person whether or not they have the money, and that's fine. And so I think that we need to kind of redefine that as well, because that's why everybody's in debt, because they think I need a helicopter and a jet and I'm going to spend money on the trip. I'm going to spend money on the jacket or the purse or the shoes or whatever it is we buy. But that mentality is why Americans are in debt.
Yeah. Yeah, and because it's the holiday season, I'll say this. One of the things I found really interesting, especially with all the Black Friday sales going on, where I saw this one commercial and they didn't say that you were spending $1 on anything. They just kept saying, you'll save when you get this, you'll save when you get that. And I'm like, oh man, they got it down to a science. It's like, hey, come to the store and save 15% when you get, I don't know, this gizmo, woozy wazzy, whatever. And I'm like, wait a minute, you didn't save a dime. You just spent money.
You just spent it. Yeah, exactly. The crazy thing, because it is coming in the holiday season, is that one of the things that my husband and I sat down and did is we looked at what we were buying the kids for Christmas. Now, the kids didn't like this, but we're like, man, why are we doing that? Like, why are we spending that amount of money? It was a lot. We have 5 kids, and then now 2 of them are married, and now they got grandkids. If we kept that same path, we'd spend thousands of dollars. And I find a lot of people, not that this is judgment, but they spend a lot of money on gift giving that maybe they don't have the money. And gift giving shouldn't be about how much do you spend. It should be about the person, about the gesture of giving somebody something. And it shouldn't be about like, oh, well, how much are you going to spend or what are you going to give? It's gotten out of control, I feel like. And so if you don't have the money, you shouldn't have that pressure to go spend it, because they're all put it on a credit card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think about that for parents, especially around this time of the year, where it's like, oh, that toy or that big thing for the child, and the child's not going to remember. What if we did X, Y, and Z, whether if it was
Right.
a college plan, an IUL or something, something that the gift that keeps on giving, to make a long story short.
Yeah, exactly. So that for us, all four of our grandkids have IULs, and we don't really buy them big gifts on the holidays or their birthdays, but we do put money in them every month. And so I feel like that's a better use of the money than if I were to buy them some toy when they get so many toys at their birthdays every year, Christmas every year, and they have lots of other relatives that are going to buy them stuff too. So like our one grandkids, they have each have very large rooms filled with toys, and then they have a toy room filled with toys, and they have a garage filled with toys. So it's like, how many toys you need.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So I got to ask you one last question, Cyndi. Because you've impacted people in the nursing realm, the financial realm, your children, your grandchildren. What does legacy mean to you, Cyndi?
Oh, well, I've thought about this a lot of different ways, and I just think a legacy is making an impact. I would love to leave stuff for our children. I mean, they all work, they all have their own places and things like that. But I would like if, for me, our grandkids, if they choose to go to college, that it's not an issue. There's money there for them to go to college. If they want to start a business, they can start a business. There's money to start a business. If they want to be entrepreneurial, that there's that. Like I want the legacy to be like Nana taught us to, be financially fit. And
Yeah.
then I do have one side that I worry about my son that had the medical event. There's no guarantee. Well, nobody really has a guarantee, but there's no guarantee that what he was diagnosed with won't come back. He's uninsurable at this point. And so I want to have money that if something were to happen, I could totally support them because he has a son now. And so he wouldn't be able to provide for his family. He can't get insurance that most people can get. So I also have that. And so I just want to not leave debt behind. I want to leave a memory and an impact on something. It's not just for my family, but I feel like I'm meant to leave an impact on something in the world, whether I'm super passionate about women and children of domestic violence. And then also, we talked about the charity for nurses, about giving back to nurses. Nurses, I know a lot of nurses that would love to go on a medical mission, but when you go, you have to pay for the mission and you have to take time off of work. So I'd love to partner with somebody and have scholarships so that they wouldn't have to use their own resources to end up giving their time. Their time would be the only resource they gave, and, fund that. So I feel like just making an impact somewhere in the world. Maybe it'll be in nursing. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be somewhere else.
Yeah. And that's powerful. That is powerful. I can almost see like you doing like a video series for like your family where it's like, hey, here's some wisdom, here's some lessons. Don't just blow that money.
Right? Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So Cyndi, tell the people where they can find you.
Oh, for sure. So I'm at Your Retirement Nurse on Instagram. I'm also Your Retirement Nurse on TikTok, Facebook. I'm Cyndi Hall, and LinkedIn. I'm Cyndi Hall as well. So I'm on all those platforms. I have a link if you want to meet with me, talk to me, that you can utilize on every platform. And that's about it.
All right. And what is one last thing that you want to leave the viewers with?
That if you don't feel like you're financially savvy or educated, or maybe you're not financially successful or stable yet, that you would reach out to somebody and get the education. There's a lot of education all over there. It's just knowing which to go to and how to start. So if you haven't started, the number one thing is just to start with something.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. All right. So yeah, it's all about getting the education to empower yourself, because you can either live life on purpose or on accident, and your legacy is on the line. And with that being said, it's been another great episode, Cyndi. I thank you so much. I truly got so much from you. And oh man, I cannot wait to reshare this with others. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Cyndi. And for everybody else, y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.